Mr. Chairman, and we are in agreement on the main point, which is that the European Union, with this emissions trading scheme, is acting outside of their prerogative and most certainly will have a negative effect on our aviation community. There are significant flaws. First, it violates U.S. sovereignty because a U.S. carrier has to pay the European tax for all segments of a flight from the U.S. to Europe, including the flight time that is strictly over the United States or over non-European international waters. So that's number one. They have certainly overstepped their boundaries. Secondly, the tax revenue is intended to mitigate aviation emissions, but there's no obligation in their law that the revenue collected be spent on aviation. So it looks like a revenue gathering that really violates decades of global transportation policy. Third, we do have ICAO, as the chairman mentioned. It is ICAO that addresses global policy issues, and for the EU to simply ignore it or not participate in what could be a voluntary global policy really doesn't make sense. Let me say that the aviation community, talking about the emissions, has had a very good record. Fuel costs are a market force that is causing air carriers to reduce their fuel consumption. They're cutting back on flights. They're filling the flights up instead of having more flights. So that in itself reduces the amount of fuel consumed. Furthermore, since the 1970s, aviation has reduced global fuel use and carbon emissions by 70% per passenger mile. Between 2000 and 2009, aviation reduced emissions by 15% while carrying over 15% more passengers and cargo. So I think the numbers indicate that the aviation community is certainly willing to have voluntary standards. If we would discuss this in the forum that has been the normal forum for global aviation issues, which is ICAO. And I think that the EU needs to step back, and I'm hoping, Mr. Secretary, that you're going to, when you do finally have a chance to talk, say that we are at one on this issue and that you will be using all the resources that you have to assure that the U.S. aviation community is not penalized by the EU because it is not in anyone's interest for us to be having a tiff with or a trade war with the European Union, and especially on something that is so black and white wrong for the EU to do. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Hutchinson.